Hi, I'm Brett Cameron from Cameron Hypnotics in Newcastle, Australia. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, have been for 15 years now, and I'm starting a series on metaphors. I love metaphors. I'm an Ericksonian hypnotherapist. I like to integrate a combination of direct hypnosis, indirect hypnosis, weaving stories and metaphors so that the client has the opportunity to go on a journey. And I want to share some of my favourite metaphors. Some of them, I've made them up. Some I've borrowed little snippets from here and there to put it all together. But the beautiful thing of creating metaphors is that you're not reading a script. You are inviting the client to go on a journey with you. So the first metaphor that I want to share with you, I call this Chiang Mai. And I secured this metaphor. I say secured because I've now locked it in. I've used it so many times now, I've locked it in. I was quite fortunate about 5 or 6 years ago, so we're talking 2015, to travel to Thailand, to Chiang Mai, where I studied with Stephen Brooks for a week. Had a fantastic time over there, but whenever I travel anywhere, I'm always observing, I'm picking up little bits of information here and there to see if I can weave some of those stories into a bigger story, into a metaphor. And the metaphor that I share with clients. So a client is in trance. They're in their chair. And I will say, I want to share a story with you. And even just by saying that, I want to share a story. We're inviting the child part of the unconscious mind to go on a journey of wonder. So I'll say, I want to share a story. Some time ago, I was in Thailand, in Chiang Mai. And when I was there, I remember going to this particular temple. And inside this temple, there was an old man who was begging. He had a bird cage. He had this bamboo bird cage, which wasn't all that large. But the bird inside it was. And you could see this bird was ruffling its feathers, wanting to stretch its wings to fly. But it couldn't, it was trapped. And this man was asking for money in exchange for the bird's freedom. And I was thinking at the time, wow, it's a bit strange. Here we are in a temple and someone's asking for money to release a bird that shouldn't have been there in the first place. And when I was leaving that temple, I noticed this beautiful BAUHINIA tree. And the BAUHINIA, it's got these lovely white and mauve orchid flowers on it. And some people call the BAUHINIA an orchid tree. Some people call them a butterfly tree because the leaves are shaped like the wings of a butterfly. And even though that tree was quite beautiful, you could see that it was struggling. And when I walked around it, I could see why. Because there was a strangler fig growing down the side of the trunk. Now, a strangler fig, that's a story in itself. A bat has dropped a seed in the top of a host tree, this time the BAUHINIA. And that seed has germinated, sending an aerial root down the side of the trunk until it hits the soil. And when it hits the soil, you can almost hear it as the roots are going through the soil, saying, yes, I've made it, sucking out the nutrients, the moisture, what the host tree needs to grow. And in time, if we let that continue, well, I think you know what the story would be. And I was thinking at the time, what if we were to cut the strangler fig off at ground level? And then we fertilise that BAUHINIA and watered all the fertilizer in. And people would look at that tree and go, wow, what an amazing tree. How robust, how resilient. And if you could use the word confident to describe a tree, you'd say that is a confident tree. And as I was leaving, just outside there was a park bench with a little girl sitting there reading a book. And she had an older man with her. I think it might have been her granddad. They seemed quite close. And she was pointing at something up in that tree. And I was curious and I followed her arm. And what did we find but the most amazing butterfly? Had the most gorgeous colours on it. It looked like a Monet watercolour, and the paint was still wet, just glistening in the sunlight. And it got me thinking about the life of that butterfly. You know, only a month earlier, there was a caterpillar on a branch just going about its life, and one day that caterpillar thought, you know, I think I might just sit here, wrap myself up in a cocoon of comfort, and I'll see what happens. So it did. So you've got this caterpillar wrapped up in a cocoon, just sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. Now, if you're looking from the outside, you might be thinking, well, there's nothing happening. But we know that the changes are happening at a deeper level. And one day when the time is right, and nature always knows when the time is right, that cocoon started to open. And out unfurled this most amazing butterfly. I think, how freaky is that? I love nature, how these things can happen. Change happens. Now, how does a butterfly know that it can fly? It doesn't have parents or a sibling to teach it. The butterfly knows because it trusts its instincts. And in a moment there was a puff of breeze, and it was airborne, and is going higher and higher up through the foliage, up to where the flowers were, tasting some nectar here, some nectar there. Some rainwater was cupped in a flower over there. Just bringing joy to everyone who sees it. And I'm wondering, as you are wrapped up in your cocoon of comfort there, getting ready to break free, getting ready to fly, I wonder what colour your butterfly wings are. And you might be wondering about the bird that was in that cage. And that's a real win-win story. Because a tourist will pay the man money to free the bird, so the tourist feels good. The man will give the money to the temple, so he feels good. And of course the bird is free to fly. Which is really what's been happening with your unconscious mind as I've been speaking. It's gone off flying, looking for new solutions, new strategies, new approaches, new ways of thinking. And then it comes back, puts it all together. And then I go on. It's a lovely metaphor. Well, mind you, I challenge you to play this again and count how many metaphors there are. There's a lot. I like to weave it all through and then pull the story back. And that's the beautiful thing about telling stories. You're really inviting the listener's unconscious mind to explore with you. So I see my role as the tour guide. And as the tour guide, I'm inviting the client to go on a journey of discovery, to make the changes that they really know they have to make. So I hope you've enjoyed that. It's a metaphor that I use a lot. And I encourage you, whenever you're out travelling or even in your garden at home or whatever you're doing, look for little things and weave them into stories. Clients love hearing stories. So I'm Brett from Cameron Hypnotics. And I look forward to sharing many more with you. So I'll see you in the next one.